Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It is Monday. It's August 28th. It is 2023. We have 12 baseball games to talk about here on today's podcast, joined today by my good buddy Keith Eister. Eys819. Keith, getting the late call in from the bullpen to start the game. Not even out of the bullpen as a reliever, filling in for our good friend Will today. Appreciate you. I mean, I literally text Keith like an hour ago. Huge shout out to Keith for willing to come on and talk about 12 games of baseball. And I know I absolutely ruined his Sunday night.
All good, man. Happy to be here. Always happy to step in and help out when a colleague needs a fill in. So we've got a fun one here tonight. Braves in Coors Field. Like, we're definitely going to have to talk about that. We're going to have to find some cheap pitching. We got 7K Ronald Acuna. So this should be a fun little slate, fun big slate here, I guess, on a Monday night.
Yes. I don't know what the sports world is doing to me. Scheduling a NASCAR truck race on Sunday after being at Daytona. I got home at like 2:30 in the morning on Saturday night, and then had to get up and do truck content on Sunday. So don't know what NASCAR is doing to me. I don't know whose idea it was to run a truck race on a Sunday after running Daytona on Saturday night. And then I literally opened this slate a little while ago and I go, 12 games? Are you kidding me? What are we doing? It's Monday, a Sunday night podcast. Like, oh, so yeah, fun. You said fun. We have a 7K Ronald Acuna. So, hey, we could play Zach Greinke for like 6K. So, we'll talk about that. Yeah, I mean, the conversation about the Braves is going to be very interesting. Glad you even brought it up, but yeah, very expensive Atlanta, as they should be. Potential weather in Coors, which is fun, so we'll have to see what Kevin Roth has to say about that. But yeah, that game opened, I think, at like 12.5. I was like, that's probably not high enough. Gomber against Atlanta in Coors, so we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, I mean, this is shaping up to be a solid slate. So what's up, YouTube? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday night. Brent, Derek, Top Shot. Derek says, so thankful Priest and Blaney are okay. Dude, I'm telling you right now, Ryan Blaney, very, very thankful to Dale Earnhardt Sr. because that was the same type of wreck that killed Dale Earnhardt, and that wreck with Dale Earnhardt changed NASCAR and the safety of NASCAR. And that wreck with Dale Earnhardt has saved many lives moving forward. And yeah, Blaney's hit was hard. And I've seen a lot of flips. Rusty Wallace's flip at Daytona comes to mind. I've seen a lot of flips, but I have not seen many flips where they gain speed in the middle of the air like Ryan Priest's car did. It looked like a video game. It was incredibly wild. Like, you just heard, because I'm on the front stretch for the race most of the time, 90% of the time, and you just heard the stands go like just everybody. Like, it was, because I mean, you see cars flip and you're like, all right, he's okay. You see that car flip and you're like, man. So it was wild night at Daytona. Shout out to Chris Buescher winning on Saturday night. Shout out to me getting second, third, and fifth and outrights on Xfinity and being absolutely tilted all night Friday night. So let's talk baseball. NASCAR talk is over. We got some baseball. So let's get into it and have some fun here. In the back of our head, as we're breaking down these games, Keith, we have to remember we do have Atlanta in Coors against Gomber. We know their prices. Before we even get into the games, are you thinking about like trying to get some of these cheap pitchers, like as we're breaking these games down? Like, is your mind on, I need to get some Braves today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have some interest in Braves. I know they're insanely expensive, but this is a team that we target on a slate like a daily basis, every single slate that they're on. They're the best offense in baseball by a mile. They're even better against lefties, and they get Gomber today. So yeah, I think you need to be looking for some cheap pitching. Certainly I'll have some lineups. I usually make 20 to 25 lineups. I'll have some where I'm paying up for pitching, but the Braves will be a huge focus. And I think there are pitchers to get it done. Well, obviously, as we're going game by game, we'll break them down. But there are several pitchers in that like 7K range. There's a 6K guy or two. Like we can make it work. I did put together, like if you do a 6K and a 7K pitcher and then a full Brave stack, you have like 2,900 left for your other 3 spots. So it is very tough, but it's doable if you're willing to spend down a little bit of pitcher.
All right, just want to get that out there. Like in my mind, like in my head, I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna be searching for some cheap pitching because I mean, I don't know if you're gonna fully stack Atlanta today, and trying to pinpoint like 3 of those bats is always really tough. But Atlanta has to be in the conversation today, assuming that weather is okay and Roth gives it a green light. So we start with the White Sox and the Orioles, 9 total in this game. Baltimore 225 favorite. We got Kopech and Rodriguez facing off against each other. Kopech left the last game a little early. It was like cramps. Not too concerned if they say he's good to go. August cramps for baseball pitchers are nothing new. It's extremely hot. They run so much. I don't think people realize just how much like pitchers run. So like the fact that like they cramp up doesn't shock me. Any interest in Kopech here at 6,300 going up against Baltimore?
Tough matchup, but this price is right in that wheelhouse for what we were just talking about. If you want to fit some Braves in, you're going to have to be willing to play some cheap pitchers. Kopech has had a rough season. His strikeouts are way down. He's under 23% on the season, so we're just sitting right around league average, 22.8%. But he's 6,300. I don't love the matchup for him, but it's the price tag. I think you have to have some interest. He's not my favorite 6K pitcher on the slate, but he's in the pool just because of slate dynamics.
Yeah, we keep saying his strikeout rate's down. It's actually up. He was like a 21% K rate guy last year. He's almost at 23%. Like we are thinking Kopech of like 2 years ago where he was just blowing the ball by everybody or walking them. And I mean, his walks are way up this year. So, I mean, it really hasn't helped situations as well. But I don't disagree with you. Again, like the whole reason I brought up the Braves is because, I mean, you're going to be uncomfortable with your pitching if you're playing Braves. So, yeah, I mean, I think Kopech would be someone I'd be willing to take a shot on in this range. I mean, there's a few guys that I think you could just X in this range, and I don't think Kopech is one of those guys you like instantly X, depending on like the tournament you're playing. This goes back to like, do we really need to 5-stack Braves and play these pitchers too? Rodriguez on the other side of this game, one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. It shouldn't be a shock to anybody. I'm a huge Grayson Rodriguez fan. I think he's extremely talented. We've talked in depth about how his velocity has picked up. Had a tough matchup last time out against Toronto. Got a little BABIP in that game. He was generating ground balls. He wasn't generating as many swinging strikes, but he was still striking guys out. So I like this spot for Rodriguez a lot. This is a Chicago team that typically has 4 to 5 righties in the lineup. We know he's much better against righties, so just not too concerned about the lineup overall. So, yeah, very interested in Rodriguez here.
Yeah, I love this spot for Rodriguez. 7,500, very fair price. The White Sox just are not a strong offense. They're near the bottom of the league in WRC plus against righties. Not a fantastic strikeout matchup for him, but he's got the stuff. I still think you're looking at 5-6 Ks as a floor. The pitch count has been really good. He's been over 90 consistently since getting called back up. So looking at about 95 pitches in a great matchup, 7,500, a little bit too cheap for that.
Yeah, I mean, the price is super appealing for a guy we know is capable of 20 plus. If you're not fully stacking the Braves, you find a cheaper secondary stack, or if you're not playing Acuna in your stack, or I think Grayson Rodriguez is a guy that I will get some ownership today for sure. Let's talk some bats. Anything? I mean, White Sox are cheap, and that was something that I noticed when I was like doing my initial research on the slate. Was like outside of Robert, everybody's under 4K. Like they're really, really cheap. I don't know if it piques my interest enough, but I mean the pricing is kind of nice.
Yeah, super cheap. I think you could use them as a mini stack. Benintendi at 3,500. Not a huge power guy, and I definitely don't want to play him on his own. Just 5 home runs on the year. Tim Anderson has had a brutal season, but he's 3,200. Like none of these names are exciting. That's kind of the problem here. Andrew Vaughn is a guy with some pop at 3,300. Moncada has just been terrible this year. It's not exciting, but I think you can use them as a mini stack, going with the cheap guys here.
Baltimore bats against Kopech. I mean, this is a type of guy that we like to stack against. When you got a guy that's walking guys almost the same amount that he's striking guys out, that's the type of guy you love to stack against. I think that Kopech potentially gets a little ownership today too. This is a guy that's capable of giving up multiple home runs in a start. He's capable of walking 3 to 5, 6 guys in a start. I think the Baltimore stack is kind of sneaky here. I don't think they'll be that chalky.
Yeah, I like Baltimore a good amount in this spot, especially the lefties. Rutschman and Henderson, the top two, obviously. Mullins is getting hot here recently. His price is climbing as well, though. He's up to $5K now. So it's not the cheapest stack, but I definitely think that you could chase some home runs here against Kopech. You could fully stack them because of that walk rate. Ryan O'Hearn at 3,300 might be the best option if you're looking for a cheap guy. Frazier's been decent. He fills second base. He's 3,400. So there are cheap bats that you can plug in with your Rutschman and Henderson and Mullins guys to make the full stack work for sure.
It's the upside for sure. They're expensive. I think that we'll talk about a few expensive stacks today. Typically we'll say like, hey, this is a pivot off of like the chalky, stack. There's no pivots off of Atlanta. You're just hoping that Atlanta hits like 3 or 4 home runs instead of like 6 or 7 home runs. So, their prices that's the downfall of Atlanta today. All right, we got Nationals and Blue Jays, 8.5 total in this game. The Blue Jays, a 250 favorite. We got Gausman and Gray facing off against each other. Any interest here in Josiah Gray?
No interest in Gray for me. Toronto's had their struggles this season, but Gray has as well. He's been a little bit better. Very right-handed Toronto lineup, which is nice for him, but I don't think I'm paying $7,700. If I'm trying to save some money, I think I can go even cheaper than this here.
He's done a great job this year limiting power to righties. A lot better than lefties. Obviously, we like to target lefties against him, but his strikeout rate and walk rate, like his strikeout rate dips, his walk rate has increased recently against righties. So overall for me on Josiah Gray, if he was like 6,500 in this spot and like he's in that conversation of being like a punt pitcher, I think then we could potentially have a conversation, but I think we're going to find better options on the slate than Josiah Gray. Kevin Gausman on the other side of this game, 6, 7 really clean innings, 5 to 8 strikeouts, puts up 25 to 35 fantasy points in this spot, 11-2. Floor-wise, one of the best floor pitchers on the slate, but he's 11-2. We got a lot of bats that we like today. Like, even if you don't like Atlanta, there's a lot of spots that you like for bats today. I don't think you would argue with like Gausman is probably like the highest floor guy on the slate, but also like, he's expensive.
Yeah, it's the price. I think that bats are going to be what you win the slate with today, and you just try to survive at pitcher. So spending up for Gausman, I don't see this as like a ceiling type performance, kind of what you were just speaking to. Washington's been a lot better here recently. They haven't struck out all season long, but now they're starting to hit a little bit too. So on paper, it looks like a pretty decent matchup for Gausman. But I don't think that I'm going up here very often to this range. There's enough talented pitching in the cheaper range that I think I'll be focusing on spending my money on bats. If that's what the entire field is doing and Gausman's coming in 5% owned, then maybe I change my thinking a little bit. But as we break this down as a first look, I think I'm spending on bats today.
I love paying up for pitching because I always feel like you can find diamond in the rough hitting always on any given slate. But I agree with you today. Like pitching, as much as I like Gausman in this spot, pitching has to be the priority today. Washington bats. I got nothing here. I'm not really interested in Washington in this spot.
Yeah, no interest against Gausman. He's one of the best pitchers in the league. Zero interest for me too.
Toronto on the other side of this game. Bichette's banged up. Chapman's banged up. We'll see if they're back in the lineup or not. No off Monday. Like this, almost the whole baseball, like MLB is playing on like what they started. Most teams probably started on like Thursday or Friday. So like they're going to have a nice stretch here. We're going to see a lot of bullpen arms at some point this week. Toronto bats. a couple guys banged up. We don't really have like left-handed power to really kind of attack with. Josiah, I mean, Varsho is really cheap. I like Belt, but I would rather find a different first baseman that maybe has a little bit more ceiling even at this price point. What are your thoughts on the Toronto bets?
Yeah, not a lot to like here because there just isn't any left-handed power. I think Belt and Varsho are the two guys you maybe try to use as one-offs looking for a cheap home run against Gray, but I don't think I'm stacking here. Gray's been solidly average this season. So and Toronto's had their struggles too. Now they're dealing with a couple of injuries, so I think I'm off Toronto.
I think I am too. Like I said, like if Josiah Gray was like 6,500 here, I would legit have a thought on like how I want to approach Josiah Gray here, but yeah. Houston at Boston. Let's talk about Red Sox. We got the Astros in town this week. 9.5 total here. Red Sox a slight 125 favorite. They're more of a favorite because Christian Javier just hasn't been pitching well. Chris Sale on the other side, he came back and he's looked okay in his 3 starts. His pitch count, nice little 15 pitch increase there. Let's talk Christian Javier first. Any interest here?
I have zero interest in Christian Javier. Boston rather is going to throw a bunch of lefties at him, and he has one of the widest splits in his strikeout rate in the entire league. Strikes out just 15.5% of lefties compared to 28.5% of righties. So Boston is just going to get really left-handed on him, and it extremely limits the upside for Javier. I have zero interest.
Yeah, I can't tell you the last time I was interested in playing Christian Javier. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't like it at all. Chris Sale on the other side here. Houston, man, they've been a tough team to figure out this year. I will say, like, they are really healthy. Much better team against righties, but they're still really good against lefties too. Any interest in Sale here?
I don't know how it was nice to see the 80 pitches last time out. I don't know how much they push him beyond that. If I'm only getting 80 to 85 pitches in this spot, 9,500 is not a price tag that I love. We've talked about slate dynamics a bunch already. I just like I know he was pretty good against Houston last time. The strikeouts were there anyway, 9 strikeouts. But facing a team back to back like this, 9,500 for a guy that I'm not sure will go over 85 pitches, I'm probably out on Sale. Glad to see him back on the mound. Hope he has a bunch of success the rest of the year, but I'm probably sitting this one out.
I'm undetermined on what I want to do here. Like he's under contract one more year. Like next year he's back with the Red Sox. I looked this up earlier. So he's back with the Red Sox next year, and then the club has the option in 2025. Big pig guy, so we'll see. But they are in a playoff push. I mean, Toronto's backed up to them now a little bit. And I mean, this series matters. Like when you're looking at the wild card for the AL right now, this series matters. We're getting closer to that point, Keith, where like we have to really like start thinking about like what teams need to do what to have a chance to make it. And like if Boston can get like with Texas like absolutely stinking recently. I think they're like 1-9 in their last 10 games or something. Hasn't been good for the Texas Rangers, but with Boston kind of going on a little push here, man, like if they can get a sweep of Houston, they're all over Houston as far as the standings for the AL wildcard too. So I think they push Sale to 90 here. I think 90, but I wouldn't even be shocked if he goes more than that. Like earlier this year, we saw him go from 81 to 94 and then 83 to 98. I wouldn't be shocked if he is in that 90 to 95 pitch range here. And like, I'm still on the fence on what to do because I really do think that Chris Sale's not going to get any ownership today. Tough matchup, really tough matchup. So I'm on the fence. I'm undecided on Chris Sale right now. There is a guy in this range that I love today that we'll talk about. He's my favorite pitcher on the slate, so we'll talk about him in a few minutes. But yeah, I'm like on the fence on Chris Sale right now. If you're playing large field tournaments, like if you're a mass multi-entry guy, you're a 150 guy, like Chris Sale would be in my 150 mix today for sure. Like not even overthinking that. So with all that said, let's talk about Houston bats. looking at like Bregman this year, awful against lefties, but he doesn't strike out. The guy, I mean, Chas McCormick's been the guy who's been one of the best hitters in baseball against left-handed pitching. But if they leave like Alvarez and Tucker, like Chris Sale, in all of his struggles and everything that he's dealt with injury-wise, the dude is still like elite against left-handed hitters.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in Houston here at all. Chas McCormick was the guy I was expecting to look at the price and have a ton of interest in, but he's up to 4,800. So you got to pay for it if you want to go that route. Abreu's been really rough. He's still under 4K, but just the power has disappeared on him this season. He's had a really down year. Julks at 2,800 might be the guy I have the most interest in, but it's not a stack. It's too expensive. Sale has too much talent for me to want to stack Houston here.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. Kind of like the Red Sox here today, though. They're in Fenway. Christian Javier has just not been good. We want to see, obviously want to see if Devers is going to be back in the lineup because that hurts. Like his X-rays came back negative, but they did say like he could miss a couple days. But I mean, they also there was a report from Cora that I read earlier today that said like he could be back here in this game. So a guy that's chasing 30 plus home runs, you would love to see him in this Boston stack, but I mean, this is one of those things like Yoshida's kind of expensive. Verdugo's kind of expensive. Cassis's price is kind of caught up with the production recently. But, I mean, it's a spot that I'm interested. If Abreu cracks the lineup, Wilyer Abreu, he piques my interest here in this matchup against Christian Javier at 2,900. Like, he's going to be someone I think you can one-off in expensive stacks today. He's talented. We'll see, how much of it translates to the bigs, but he's talented.
I love that Abreu call. 2,900 hits from the left side of the plate. That's exactly what we're looking for against Javier. Cassis is the other guy I absolutely love in this spot. Yoshida at 4,700, like a hitter who hits the ball on the ground a little bit too much. So facing an extreme fly ball guy like Javier is a nice boost. Love Yoshida's profile in this spot. I'm certainly chasing home runs here. I probably end up stacking them a couple times as well. Like the prices are climbing, but they're really left-handed, and that's what I'm targeting against Javier. So I could easily make it a 3-man stack. I'll probably have a couple full stacks as well.
Abreu too is fast. He has some wheels. He can steal bases. So adds to the upside for him as well. So like that 2,900 price tag. He was drafted by Houston too. We got him in a trade, I think last year. That's it. Moving on to the next game. We got Texas at New York facing the Mets. Gray and Miguel facing off against each other. 9 total in this game. Rangers a 150 favorite. John Gray, 8,100 against the Mets in Citi Field. I'm interested here, Keith. I think that the price is a fair price tag. Gets a nice ballpark upgrade going into Citi Field. Nice price tag, 8,100. What are your thoughts here on John Gray?
Yeah, I wish he was a little bit cheaper. He's been down in that 6K range his last couple times he was on a slate, and if he was at that price, I'd have a ton of interest here. 8,100. I think I'm trying to go a little lower than that for some of my pitching. He's in the pool though, like you mentioned, huge ballpark upgrade into Citi Field. He's been okay here recently. The Mets have not been outstanding. Their lineup falls off really quickly now, so I'm interested, but I think he's going to be a lower owned guy for me on the slate. I'm targeting, I'm looking in that 6K range as often as I can. I think he's more in a dead zone here for his price tag.
Mets have kind of accepted the strikeouts in the bottom half of that lineup with Ventos and Stewart, Vogelbach. They've just accepted Alvarez. So I mean, the upside is in that bottom half. He might have 4 or 5 guys with strikeout rates over 20%, 25%. So it's nice boost. They also have some power in the bottom half of that lineup now too, with Stewart coming over. I 8,100, like you said, it was nice when we were getting him for 6K. But I think this is a good spot. Overall, I think it's a good spot for John Gray. I don't know how much will necessarily end up in this price range though. I think that we're going to be in that 6-7K range and then the 8-9K range. So I don't know how much will be in this low 8K range, but Tyler McGill on the other side of this game. I know Texas has been struggling, but there's no chance I play this guy in this spot.
Yeah, just too many walks on the season. 5,800 is a decent price for a fully stretched out pitcher, but Texas is still an elite offense. It is a ballpark downgrade. They have been struggling recently. I don't think I'm getting to McGill today, though.
No interest for me. I mean, if this game was in a different ballpark, I think Texas would be very stackable here in this spot. But I like, maybe targeting like Heim at catcher. 3,600, I think, is a fair price tag for him. If Martinez is in the lineup, JP Martinez, I think he's someone you could take a shot on at 2,800. Like, we're trying to find some cheap bats today, right? Like, we're trying to pay up for a couple stacks. So, like, going at one of these like cheap outfielders or something like that for Texas, I don't think is crazy.
Yeah, I like the JP Martinez call. Not a great ballpark to want to stack. Limits their upside a little bit too much for me. But Martinez as a cheap guy, definitely don't mind that. Nate Lowe would probably be my favorite hitter if I was just picking out one guy. With Seager and Simeon both over 6K, probably not going there too often in this park.
Yeah, my notes say cheap Texas lefties. So Jankowski would be another one of those potential guys at 2.9K. So just like cheap bats here for Texas. Great spot. McGill's not a guy that's going to blow the ball by anybody. It's just a bad ballpark. Mets bats against Gray. I mean, you could play Alonso against anybody on any given slate. He's, I think, one home run away from 40, so he's just capable of beating anybody. I think, like, if you were going to target Vogelbach at 3K, I wouldn't talk you off of it, or Stewart at like 2,900. Just like these guys that are going to strike out or hit the ball super hard is where I would go.
Yeah, Vogelbach and Stewart are the two guys that I'd be looking at here, just trying to find a cheap home run. Lefty power has been a problem of John Gray's his whole career, so certainly don't mind those two cheapies. Tons of power there. Not a stack for me though.
Moving on. We got Cleveland at Minnesota. This is a really interesting baseball game. We'll talk about it. I'm excited. 8.5 total here. The Twins are a 165 favorite. The Twins are a favorite, but we got Curry going up against Maeda. Any interest here in Xavier Curry?
I am interested. I'm very concerned about the leash here. Like, he's a guy who has been all over the map in terms of pitch count. He's pitched a lot out of the bullpen. He's pitched as a bulk reliever quite a bit. He made a couple of starts.
Well, no. Okay, so really quick, I just want to note that awful the first inning against the Dodgers. Second inning was okay. Game rained and he didn't come back. It was the same game as Kershaw where they like played a couple innings and then the game got So I had to look into it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I remembered that off the top of my head, but I had to look into it because I'm the same thought, like right the same way. Like, all right, we get a matchup against Minnesota. They strike out a lot. This dude's 5,700. Yep. Is he going to get 30 pitches or 80 pitches again? So I had the same thought, Keith. I was like, oh man, what is going on with this guy? And then I like looked it up and it was the rain shortened outing where he didn't even get the pitch in the third. So I assume that like we are going to get a normal 5-ish innings if he's pitching okay.
Yeah, and thanks for setting me on the right path here. Then I'm extremely interested. Minnesota strikes out at one of the highest rates in baseball, like you touched on. I know Curry doesn't have a strong strikeout rate on the season. He's way down under 20%, 16.5% guy. So the ceiling is a bit limited, but Minnesota helps with that a little. He's 5,700 on a slate where we've already talked about how much we want to spend up for our bats. If I can get 15 DK points at 5,700, which I think is absolutely in the range of outcomes here, I'm going to take some shots at that.
Yeah, and like this guy had plenty of strikeout stuff in the minors. He's not a huge prospect by any means. Just throwing it out there. Like, so, I mean, he has the potential to be okay. And okay, like you said, though, give me 15. Like, I'm not even like, I'm not greedy. I don't need 25. I don't give me 25. Like if he's at 15 and he's done with the fifth inning, yank him. I do not want him to come back out in the sixth. So, yeah, I mean, again, like where we're looking at paying up for Atlanta, We're going to talk about another stack that is expensive that I like too. But, I mean, let's just say how it is. If we're wanting to pay up for Atlanta against Gomber and Coors, Curry potentially popular. Like, I think that, he's someone that could get some ownership today. Maybe Kyle Muller gets some ownership today. I don't think like Adam Wainwright's going to get a ton of ownership. I don't think McGill's going to get a ton of ownership, and I don't think Greinke's going to get an ownership. So, like, if we're looking under 6K on DraftKings specifically, I think Curry and Muller have the highest chance to get some ownership. I don't know what that ownership is going to be, but I think that those two guys get the highest opportunity to get some ownership because of their matchups.
Yeah, and if you're playing Braves, like if you're going premium Braves, you need 2 of these guys down here. There's a guy in the 6K range who I think is going to be very popular. But as far as going under 6K, I agree. Curry is the best option of the bunch down here.
You can just say Kyle Harrison's going to be popular.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison's going to be the key to everything on this slate.
Yep. So, I mean, yeah, like it's an interesting slate for sure. But yeah, I think like, okay, so like my initial like thought process as far as like the slate was leaving Acuna out of my Atlanta stack to make it a little bit cheaper or leaving Olsen out. But like if you leave Olsen out, I feel like that's like the move that most people will do here because it's lefty.
Yep.
So like if you're leaving Acuna out and you're playing Olsen, you're making your Brave stack different. I could see a stack where you could leave out Acuna and Olsen and get Riley, whoever catches Ozuna, start with those 3 guys and kind of go from there. If Darno is in the lineup, it makes the Atlanta stack a lot easier to get to today too, for what it's worth. So yeah, it's an interesting slate in that aspect. We're getting to that Atlanta game. Don't worry. The other side of this game, Kenta Maeda against Cleveland, kind of just one of those scenarios, Keith, where I feel like Kenta Maeda throws a good game. Cleveland doesn't have a lot of power. But does he score enough? That's what I'm worried about. Like just the overall upside here. Like I could see Kenta Maeda scoring like 20 in this spot, but at 9,200, I don't think 20 is enough on a 12-game slate.
Yeah, I agree. 20. I wouldn't be real happy with 20 at 9,200. I need 25 probably. And it's the same thing. Like Cleveland is always a tough team to target because they don't strike out. There's no power there, so it's really length where you find a ceiling in a pitcher, and Maeda is not really a length guy. He's going to be more in that 85 to 90 than he is going to be pushing 95 to 100. So I'm worried about the strikeout upside. He has an excellent strikeout rate on the season, near up at 29%. So maybe he can get you 6 strikeouts, but he'd have to be 6 pretty clean innings and 6 strikeouts to get you that 25. So again, I think I'm going to be saving money as often as I can at pitcher. Maeda, I wouldn't kick him out of the lineup. He's fine. I think he's safe, kind of similar to the Gausman situation. Like he probably has a good outing here, but does he put up the ceiling performance that can help you win a tournament? I'm not sure this is a spot for that.
Any interest in the Cleveland bats here?
No interest in Cleveland bats at all.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in Cleveland. I mean, you can one-off Jose Ramirez, but I've said it so many times, I feel like it's a broken record. Jose Ramirez is an excellent hitter. I let him beat me on most slates. He's just not a guy that I typically play a lot. And like he beats me. I mean, he has the upside to score 25 plus. He's done it twice in the last 5 games. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't want to pay 5,500 for a one-off especially on this slate. Minnesota side, I mean, with Buxton on the IL, with Naylor out, I mean, just an offense that is just struggling. If Curry struggles, I see it being on the bats of like Wallner, Julian, Kepler. So like if we are getting some ownership on Curry, I think like a little mini stack of like Wallner, Julian, Kepler, Gallo, like 3 of those like power guys, that would be where I would go.
Yeah, I think you're saving money here definitely and using them as a little mini stack. Kepler stands out at 3,600. I like the Wallner call as well. Not a full stack. I have respect for Curry. He's probably an average pitcher at this point. So yeah, not a ton of interest in Minnesota, but if you want to save some money, I think they make some sense.
All right, moving on. We got San Diego at St. Louis, 9.5 total here. Padres a 175 favorite. Adam Wainwright, Blake Snell. Let's start with Blake Snell here. 10-8. I mean, a guy that continues to show plenty of strikeout upside, but continues to have, I feel like, one bad inning a start. Fading him has been fun. He went on that stretch where you just could not fade him. St. Louis is a great offense on paper, especially against left-handed pitching. You look at the lineup here: Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras. They have plenty of right-handed hitters with low strikeout rates. What are we doing with Blake Snell today?
I've been underweight on him the last 3 times out also, and it's worked out okay. Like, he hasn't been terrible, but he just hasn't put up the 30 that you kind of need at this price tag. I kind of feel the same way on this one, and that's part of why I think it makes just roster construction makes so much sense on this slate. You want to spend on bats because we can poke holes in all these 10K, 11K pitchers. It's a tough matchup against St. Louis. They line up against lefties really well. Snell has a massive walk problem, and he's always one pitch away from disaster. So I don't think I want to allocate a lot of my funds to that type of pitcher on this slate when I know I want to spend on bats. So same conversation as Gausman for me. Unless he's like 5-10% owned, I'm going to be under the field on him.
I mean, yeah, I think this is a spot I'm underweight. Like, again, like, I feel like it's all about like what tournaments you're playing to. 20 entry max, 150 entry max. You're getting exposure. Blake Snell is one of the few pitchers on the slate that can put up 35 plus. So his ceiling is definitely high. It's just for this price, you need him to have a ceiling game, and he could. St. Louis, I mean, plenty of ceiling spots against this offense this year. Sorry, Cardinals fans in chat. They have been awful. Adam Wainwright, no effing chance.
Nope.
No chance. Padres, one of my favorite stacks on the slate to get off of the Braves today. They're expensive. This is that's the stack I've been talking about, like an expensive stack. They have been struggling as a team. I mean, gosh, this team has so much talent. They're just, I don't know what's going on with this team. But anyway, what are your thoughts here on the Padres bets?
Yeah, I mean, if Adam Wainwright's on the mound, you stack against him in 2023. That's just how it's been. I hope he gets his 200, but I don't think it's going to be in this spot. San Diego should just tee off on him. Should be another short one for Wainwright. They're a fantastic pivot off the Braves. They have as much upside as anyone not named the Braves on this entire slate. So definitely in play. One of the best pivots. Yeah, I mean, full stack them. They're expensive. Like, Kim is up to 5K. That's a tough price for him. Love Tatis at 6K, Machado at 5,300. Soto's not a guy I love to play, but he's totally fine. He could absolutely hit 2 home runs, especially in this matchup against Wainwright. Grisham is a cheap guy. Really like him. But yeah, one of the highest upside stacks on the slate.
It's funny. I don't know how much you dig into. Like, I love like on the betting side of things for like second half betting. I love looking at like expected win loss. I think the Padres have the highest differential in expected win loss to their actual win loss record. They're not. Yeah, it's crazy. I think their expected win loss is like 10 games better than their actual win loss. So, if you're a Padres fan, kind of stinks. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic stack. I mean, Adam Wainwright is a shell of Adam Wainwright from 5 years ago, and I mean, he was a pitcher that was phenomenal for years. For years, Adam Wainwright was just a phenomenal baseball pitcher, and he's not the same guy. 11% Ks, 250 ISO, 430 WOBA. I mean, those are the numbers you love to see. 5% swinging strikes. Like, if you can't attack the San Diego lineup, dude, they're just going to beat you. So, yeah, I love the Padres today. Cronenworth went on the IL over the weekend. We could potentially get a cheap bat here to help make this stack work too. Don't know who it would necessarily be.
Was it going to be Matt Carpenter revenge?
I don't know if it's Carpenter or didn't they call Batten back up? I remember seeing like a note that they called Batten back up, and he's cheap too. I think he's like 28 or 2,900.
Yeah, they typically like to play him against lefties though.
Are you concerned though with Adam Wainwright?
No, I'm not. Whoever's in the lineup, I'm playing him. Don't get me wrong. Cooper's another cheap guy that can play some first.
They said Matt Carpenter's played a few games here recently, like pinch hit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really rough season for him. So, but I would play him in this spot if he's in the lineup.
Oh, I mean, 2,400 for punt first base. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Cardinals bats. Any interest in the Cardinals against Snow?
I mean, if he's popular, I probably do find some stacks. Like they're expensive. The guys you want to play anyway, Goldie and Arenado, obviously. Contreras is 4K. I don't mind that. It's going to depend on Snell's popularity though, because I like there's so many great offenses. Like we just talked about the Padres. I would much rather spend on the Padres. I would much rather spend on the Braves. Even Baltimore, we talked about at the beginning. I would prefer. Like Snell's really good when he's on. He has strikeout stuff that gets him out of jams. But he's going to put some traffic on the bases. So I do have interest in this Cardinal stack.
I'll say this. Someone put us on this in YouTube chat when we were doing podcasts last week. So shout out to whoever it was. I think it was Derek. They have been pulling Arenado and Goldschmidt late in games. So like you're losing an at bat late in games. Yeah, you're playing them to face Snell, right? Like the lefty righty matchup. You're playing them for the ceiling against lefty righties, but like even like it just I mean at these prices, like the only way I'm not touching Goldschmidt or Arenado in like a one-off situation is kind of what I'm getting at. Just super worried about like losing an at bat late. Like, hey, I'm in the running for a tournament. I need one more double from Arenado to really kind of put me out there. Hey, Arenado's been pinch hit for by Wynn's going to come in and pinch hit for Arenado. There you go. So shout out to whoever it was. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Derek. Makes sense. He's the Cardinals guy. We're moving on. We have Milwaukee at Chicago Cubs. 9 total, which never tells me anything about the Wind. A 9 total game doesn't tell me anything about Wind and Wrigley. Taillon against Miley, 120 favorite to the Cubs here. What are your thoughts here on Milwaukee?
Like I want both of these pitchers. I want to have interest in. I can't get excited about either one. We'll see how my build ends up closer to lock. Right now, I kind of feel like I'm out on both. Miley he doesn't strike enough guys out. The Cubs offense has been outstanding in the second half of the season. They're second in all of baseball in WRC plus behind the Braves in the second half of the season. Miley 6,700. Like the strikeouts are not going to be there. Can he survive 6 innings? Possibly. I don't know. I'm really trying hard not to play either one of these guys, but I would play Taillon over Miley, I think, but I'm pretty much out on Miley.
Yeah, no interest for me on Miley. I'm finding the $800 to get to Rodriguez at that point, or just punting the position. Taillon's interesting here. 6,900. He's capable of like 20 plus. I don't know if you necessarily need him to go 20 plus in this spot. He's all over the place. There's nothing safe about him. You know, the Milwaukee lineup, not a huge strikeout team. Like they brought over like Carlos Santana and Mark Canha and have just kind of limited their strikeouts a little bit here recently. I think Taillon could go out and have a solid start and get us around 15 plus. I think that's enough today, kind of going for these cheap guys. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of like, I definitely prefer Rodriguez for what it's worth. $600. I take a bat out of my lineup and get Rodriguez in there, prefer that. But I think like if you're trying to go Taillon Rodriguez like type of stack to get Atlanta in there and maybe fading Acuna and Olsen, it's doable. What are your overall thoughts here on Taillon? I know you kind of already said that maybe you play him here.
Yeah, I mean, it's only lukewarm interest at best. Like, I would definitely rather get up to Rodriguez as well or go down to Harrison. But, like, I have a feeling I'm going to be looking for 2 of these type of guys in a lot of lineups. So he might end up making the pool. Milwaukee's been on a tear, too. Like, they will not lose. I think it's 5 in a row they've won now, and it's been against, like, brutal opponents, Texas and San Diego. So Milwaukee's rolling a little bit. Taillon has not had a great season. But I think I can get 90 pitches here, and it's similar to Miley. Like, can he get through 6 innings and give me 4, 5, 6 strikeouts and get to 15 points is really the thing. 20 points would be phenomenal. Maybe he makes a pool. I'm not excited about. Definitely not my favorite. Not even my favorite pitcher in this range.
Milwaukee bats here against Taillon. Any interest in them here?
Do have some interest. Obviously, want to check the wind in Wrigley. If it's blowing out at all, I would have even more interest.
Looks like it's a crosswind. Night
Okay.
before it's showing crosswind.
Yeah, so maybe not too much of an effect either way. You definitely want lefty power against Tyon. Yelich at 5,200 is fantastic. Frelick's price is coming up. Don't know if I get there. Santana is cheap. Rowdy Tellez is back. I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup. It seems like they might be taking it slow with him. I think he was out of the lineup Sunday. Or maybe it was Saturday he was out and then in Sunday. So it seems like he's been every other game. But he's 2,400. If he's in the lineup, I love this spot for Tellez. I don't know if I full stack him. Mini stack I'm okay with. Yelich is a fantastic spot. All the lefties are really. That's what I'm looking at here is lefty power.
Yeah, I mean, you can ease them back a little bit. They got a little bit of a buffer over the Cubs right now, but another series. I mean, yeah, it's still a little too early to be talking about like series mattering a ton, but I mean, both these teams, like a sweep in this series would be huge for this NL Central race right here. So
Definitely.
I love the Tellus call, by the way. 2.4K. Love first base with some power that's cheap. And Frelick is expensive because he's good. And I've been saying this ever since he got called up. You're all welcome. I am wrong all the time, but I wasn't wrong about this guy. Cubbies bats, they're kind of pricey. Wade Miley is not typically a guy that I love to stack against. Like, he can go out and give up a home run and like have an okay start and just not like you're not having like those ceiling games sometimes. I think it's a stack or fade spot for me, and I probably don't get there in a 3-entry max. Yan Gomes is a one-off. I don't hate that. He's 3,200. He's been great against left-handed pitching this season, so yep. I don't mind maybe Yan Gomes at 3,200 as a one-off.
Yeah, I don't love the full stack because of the pricing. Like Bellinger over 6K, dude's been awesome this season, and he's been awesome against lefties too. If he was cheaper, I'd have interest, but like you said, they're just too expensive. Miley, not a guy that typically gets blown up. Like there's just not a ton of cheap options. I love the Gomes call. If Amaya happens to crack the lineup, he's 2,900. I'd be fine with that too. So cheap catchers is certainly fine. Suzuki at 3,600. Dude is finally starting to come around recently. Was struggling all season long, basically, until here recently. But historically, or at least last season, hit lefties really, really well. So 3,600 for Suzuki, I don't mind. I'm not in love really with the higher end bats, though.
I have a question for you. I know you watch a lot of Braves. We typically want to attack low strikeout guys with like Patrick Wisdom, a guy that I don't think anybody's going to be playing today. When we look at Miley, 14% Ks against righties, generates hardly any swinging strikes against right-handed hitters. Like, is this a spot we attack the power of Patrick Wisdom at like no ownership?
Yeah, I mean, if he's in the lineup, like he just has not been playing since they acquired Candelario. So I'm not sure that he's even going to be in the lineup. If he is, I think this is exactly the type of spot you want to attack Wisdom.
I mean, they've DH'd him a couple of times, haven't they?
Yeah, and then against a lefty, that's where he's going to play. He's probably going to hit eighth or ninth. But yeah, against a matchup against a low strikeout pitcher, exactly the spot you want to target Wisdom. So that could make it a nice little, like the Suzuki Wisdom Gomes 3-man. I'd be all over that if he's in there.
Now we're talking.
Like, I'm not excited. If it's not Wisdom, it's going to be Madrigal, which I'm not excited to play Madrigal.
You mentioned a cheap catcher, dude. You're talking my love language. We got Pirates and Royals, 9 total in this game. Pick'em game. Oviedo against Greinke, and it's a pick'em game. Man, too much respect for the name Zach Greinke. I'm sorry. Juan Oviedo. I don't hate this like Rodriguez Oviedo pairing to get some bats today. I don't know like what type of Atlanta stack you're still looking at if you're doing that, like the 2.7K guys. But I mean, as much as we like bats today, I could see myself going to like these 2.7K guys. I think Oviedo, he's gone over 20 fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 starts. The Royals are extremely hit or miss. Am I crazy here, Keith?
I don't think you're crazy at all. I have interest as well. Oviedo's been extremely inconsistent, but when he's on, like, he's been pretty good. He coming off a great start against the Cardinals, 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 run. If he can do that here against Kansas City, I'd be totally thrilled with that for 7,300. Kansas City, not necessarily an offense that scares me. Obviously, Bobby Witt's amazing, but Sal Perez has had a down season, and there's not a lot in this lineup outside of that. So Oviedo very much in play for me.
I'm always going to call him Oviedo. There's a town by where I grew up, and it was expelled the exact same way. I'm always going to call him Oviedo. He limits his walks and his power against righties. So, I mean, when you're looking at the Royals, like power, I mean, I was looking at this before, and I wrote him down. And I was like, man, everything makes sense. I mean, Garcia has been hitting okay. He's righty. Witt's been the best hitter in this lineup. He's a righty. Perez is one of the best hitters in this lineup. He's righty. Nelson Vasquez, ever since he got called up, has been crushing right-handed pitching, but he's a righty. So I feel like this is a spot. Like, you look at where he's had success in the matchups that he's had success, and it was against right-handed heavy offenses. So I think he's very, very playable here today. And again, a little bit too much respect for Zach Greinke, his name here. Speaking of that guy, hey, he's not going to walk people. Like, if you stumble across a Zach Greinke under 1.5 walks line anywhere, jump on that, because this guy's just committed to throwing strikes and doesn't even care. He's like, hit me. I'm not walking people. Thoughts on Zach Greinke? I know he pitched okay in his 4 innings last time out.
I mean, he's throwing less than 60 pitches in these outings.
Well, he came back. That he was out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, you're right.
That was it. Yeah, he came back.
Yeah. But even before, like all season long, he's been in the 80. So I don't know. He's 6K. It's the only reason we're even considering this, and it's a matchup against Pittsburgh. Like, to fit in Braves, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think I'm going to be doing it much. Like, the two guys we just talked about, Tyon Miley and Greinke, throw them in a bucket, and maybe you can find 15 points there. It's not exciting. It might just be something that's necessary for this slate if you want to play a ton of Braves, but not excited about it at all.
I'm not playing Zach Greinke. I will play others. I was gonna say I'd play anybody else in this range, but I'm not playing Adam Wainwright either. So, dude, man,
I'm assuming that Harrison's going to be like 30% owned just because he makes everything work on this slate. If he's not, then you just go way overweight on Harrison and you forget about all these old guys who don't strike anybody out.
Pirates bats. I mean, Reynolds over the last 30 days has been phenomenal. I think his ISO is like 360 against righties. Been crushing. Low key, Connor Joe has been really good against righties here recently. I was looking at his stats before we got rolling here. Kind of like Pittsburgh. They get a ballpark upgrade because they're outside of Pittsburgh, and pretty much anywhere else they play is going to be an upgrade. I could see myself mini stacking some of these Pittsburgh bats today. There's some cheap bats at the bottom half. Like, Rodriguez is cheap. Bay has been hitting leadoff. He's like 3K. So I think I might use some of these guys. Peguero at 2.8K. Like, if he cracks the lineup. Palicious is someone that has been playing at like 2.4K. Like, Greinke's not going to throw the ball by anybody. He's going to pitch the contact. Why not take some of these cheap bats here? Alfonso Ravis at 2.3. Like, I kind of like a little mini stack from Pittsburgh today.
Yeah, I'm with you here. They're cheap. Like, Jack Sawinski has been just awful, but is he really going to get struck out by Zach Greinke? I don't think so. We just had this conversation with Wisdom. These guys with massive strikeout rates facing extremely low strikeout pitchers, man, that's exactly the spot that we love to target these guys. So Sawinski, Peguero, Palacios, yeah, I mean, they're all cheap. So you can spend on Reynolds if you want. I think I play him more as a 3-man cheap stack, like on the other side of Braves or something like that, or Padres. But I love the value mini stack here.
Alfonso Rivas has a 250 ISO against right-handed pitching over the last month. He also strikes out 30% of the time.
Perfect spot for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just the type of spot you're looking for. As far as Kansas City, I mean, I want lefties against Oviedo, and I mean maybe like a Melendez type of play. Michael Massey, 3.2K at second base. He's someone that has a little bit of power. I don't mind like maybe some of these cheap lefties here. If Oviedo is going to get a little bit of ownership.
Yeah, same thoughts from me. Massey, Melendez, Isbell if he cracks the lineup, Drew Waters if he's in there.
Waters, I forgot about him.
Yeah, I mean it's lefties that you definitely want, and I think you save some money. Another value mini stack.
All right, we've talked 55 minutes on this podcast. Just to get to this point, everybody's been waiting for us to, tell them to play Atlanta in Coors if they can. 12.5 total. Atlanta's a 240 favorites. Elder and Gomber. We're gonna start here with Bryce Elder, right? He's pitching for Atlanta. Who cares? So I opened the slate. I was like, man, if they would have just enticed us a little bit with Bryce Elder today, as bad as this Colorado team is, maybe. But his struggles with lefties, I think, is still too much for me to have a lot of interest in him in Coors.
Yeah, I have no interest in 8,300. Colorado can put 4 lefties in there probably against him. It's Coors Field, 18% strikeout rate. I'm out.
Any interest, because it's my job to ask, in Austin Gomber?
You are insane if you play Austin Gomber on this slate.
All right, so I have a question for you. You run 150 teams. You somehow decide, all right, I don't care what happens. I'm going to try to script 150 Atlanta teams, and I'm just going to take my shots with pitching, right? Do you throw like a $12 single entry on an Austin Gomber? Like, just in case he has that, game of his life?
I
mean,
no.
You're that invested? Okay, what is it? It's like $1,500 to 10, max to $10. I don't even know if it's $10 anymore. It's like 15, right?
15,
so
yeah.
You're like over $2,000 invested. You're like, I'm not wasting $12 on an Austin Gomber team. I'm just general strategy thought. Just curious on your thoughts.
I mean,
I'm 100%, by the way, 100% throwing away $12. I hope. And trying, even if you win the $12 tournament, I don't even think you will make your money back on unless you min cash some teams. But just saying.
Yeah, I mean, not something I would do. I don't generally play like that, but I get it. There are situations I think that's viable. I don't see any way that Gomber puts up a performance that wins you a tournament is the thing. Even if he has some success here, isn't it going to be 6 innings? He's not going to go clean. I wouldn't think 6 shutout innings is I don't know, a 2% outcome, maybe, probably not even that much. And the strikeouts aren't there either. Atlanta doesn't strike out. So even if he has success, does he put up enough points to win you a tournament?
No, I mean, I'm just saying, if I am running 150 teams, I am putting a $12 single entry on Austin Gomber and hoping that I took that $12 and lit it on fire. That's how my mind thinks. Let's talk Atlanta bats, dude. We're going to get some people, and we already have Alan in chat says, first night in Coors, are you worried about that? I'm always worried about that. I mean, it's a thing. There's no actual science to it. There's no actual numbers unless somebody's actually done it. But you can tell the first night in Coors is not the same. But where are you not? What ballpark are you not playing Atlanta against Austin Gomber? I mean, this is the best offense against a below-average pitcher. Look at their numbers. I mean, Ronald Acuna has been fantastic. Riley's been fantastic. Ozuna's been fantastic. Arcia has been fantastic.
Yeah.
They're all really good against lefties. I mean, you're playing this team in any ballpark against Gomber. So,
their team ISO against lefties, for what it's worth, is 235. 200 is an elite ISO. Their team ISO is 235.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk strategy and roster construction. You can play any of the 9 Bravers that cracked the lineup. Me and Keith agree on that. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Let's talk roster construction and strategy, how you're approaching the Atlanta Braves today.
Yeah, so you mentioned Arcia being great against lefties. He's going to hit at the bottom of the order. He's 4,600. That's the only semblance of a value bet that we're going to get here probably, unless Kevin Pillar cracks the lineup. So I think Arcia is going to be a huge part of my build. The other way is if Darno catches ahead of Murphy, the Braves are going to be massive chalk. I'm not sure how owned they're going to be if we don't get Pillar and we don't get Darno. Acuna 7K, Olsen 6,900. I think playing Olsen lefty is going to be pretty different. Like people can look at the numbers and they're going to see that Olsen's been really good against lefties this year. But there's still going to be those people that are like, oh, lefty, I don't want to play him. So I think Olsen is a good way to get unique. Play him over Acuna. I don't know. Like I'm really curious to see where these ownerships are going to be because it is extremely hard to fit 5 Braves in a lineup.
You know what makes it easier? Luke Williams cracks the lineup over Nicky Lopez today.
That would make it easier.
But what type of ownership would Luke Williams, even hitting 9th in this spot, get today? Like, it would have to be like some ridiculous number, right? Like, it would be 50%, I think, in most tournaments. Like, so I think like if Luke Williams cracks the lineup and you're playing Atlanta, like, you have to get different somewhere. Like, that's where I think that's where it becomes interesting. Like, if you go Olsen over Acuna. Albies joined the team on Saturday or Sunday. He could be back, and like Williams might get sent down. That will be the corresponding move, in my opinion. Or Pilar gets DFA'd. So that would add a wrench into things too, because Ozzy Albies facing a lefty in Coors. I mean, that's the guy you want. So it just comes down to roster construction. How do I get different with my Atlanta stack? You're kind of hoping that Rosario gets the day off and Pilar starts. Pilar would be a huge pinch hit risk. Can't talk. He would be a risk for that situation. Vaughn Grisham might start. He would be a pinch hit risk as well. Dude, I don't know. Any cheap guy, and by cheap, anybody in a 5K that cracks the lineup for Atlanta is going to be popular today. Yeah. So yeah,
I love that Ozuna has been priced up. Like we've been talking about how expensive the Braves have been for 2 months now, and even when we were talking about that, like Ozuna and Rosario were 3,500. Now they're up to 5K, both of them. So it is extremely difficult to fit in five Braves unless we get somebody like Luke Williams in the lineup here.
I will say really quick, Ozuna is my favorite hitter from Atlanta today. So there you go.
Love it. Yeah.
Let's talk Rockies. They're cheap. Elder stinks against lefties. Like, do we take shots on Blackman at 4,500? Yeah, heck yeah, we do. Nolan Jones is a guy that I love today. What type of ownership is he going to get at 4,600 today? I don't think it's that much. So, yeah, I mean, McMahon, Nolan Jones, Blackman, these 3 lefties that potentially cracked the lineup today, like, I think they're all in really good spots against Elder.
Yep, I like the Rockies quite a bit here. I think they're going to be completely forgotten about because everybody's playing Braves. But Elder can be beaten by left-handed bats. So love the Nolan Jones call. McMahon, Blackman, Toglia, I believe, is left-handed as well. 3,300 from him. He's a switch hitter, so yeah, he'll hit from the left side against Elder. I don't know if I full stack him. Maybe you throw in somebody cheap like Rogers. Doyle has some speed. Like you find a cheap righty to make it a 4-man or 5-man. But I love these lefties here for sure.
Not to get too sidetracked really quick. For the last 20, 25 minutes, I've been trying to find, I have a Dyson fan. I've been trying to find the remote. Couldn't find it. I had a disc golf disc on my desk and it was underneath it. And it was driving me crazy that I couldn't find my remote. This is right in front of me the whole time. Oakland at Seattle. No total in this game. It was announced that Moeller will start after being kind of a long reliever here recently. Wu going to start for Seattle. He just came back from the IL, only threw 65 pitches. They said that he was only going to throw 4 innings in that game, so we knew that was going to happen. They announced it before game, so maybe we get some kind of announcement here again. Moeller, 5,300. Any interest in him against Seattle?
I mean, I love the Seattle bats in this spot, but Mueller is 5,300. He's been okay, honestly, since coming back. He was getting his face absolutely punched in at the beginning of the season. He's been better his last 2 times out. He's only thrown 66 pitches and 67 pitches in those 2 starts, though. Like I said, I love Seattle. They're one of my favorite stacks on the slate. But I think you have to consider some Muller just because of the $5,300 price tag. I mean, we're talking about playing guys like Zach Greinke and Wade Miley because of their price. So I wouldn't kick Muller out of the pool. It's just kind of a necessary thing to be able to play some Braves, is you need 2 cheap pitchers, and Muller's cheap.
Yeah, I mean, you don't feel good about playing Kyle Muller here. You do feel good about like a guy that's not a huge strikeout guy facing a team that just strikes out at such a massive clip. Like they have the second highest strikeout rate in baseball against left-handed pitching this season. Like Julio Rodriguez, 32%, Suarez, 34.5%, Cal Riley, 34%, Teoscar Hernandez, 31%. Like all of these guys that can take this dude deep also strike out a huge clip. This game is in Seattle, pretty neutral ballpark. He's 5,300. I mean, he threw only 66 and 67 pitches last 2 starts because he was pitching in long relief. Does he get 85 here because he's starting instead of doing the opener long relief situation? Tough to say. I like the chances better if they let him actually start this game for him to, throw 5 innings. So, I mean, I don't love it. Gosh, you obviously don't love it, but I mean, if you're trying to play Atlanta, I think he's viable. Brian Wu on the other side of this game. Hope we get some information on him. I mean, kids gloves, right? I feel like this is a team that's going to be very, very careful. This guy is like future. They're in a tough race as well. Like the whole American League has like, it's just so separated. You have like the good teams and then everybody else is just way, way, way down here. Any thoughts here on Wu? 7,900 against Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, against Oakland is kind of the key thing. If we can get 80 pitches, I'm very interested at 7,900. If it's 70, 75, like I think we're getting at least 75 pitches here. And in a matchup against Oakland, I have interest. I think Brian Wu is an outstanding pitching prospect, extremely talented, big fastball, and he's facing a team that strikes out a ton. So I'm interested. Concerned about the pitch count, obviously, but give me 85 pitchers, or I think 80 is probably the ceiling. 15 pitching increase is pretty standard. So in the 80 range, probably like 78 to 82 is where I would put it. I'm extremely interested against Oakland.
When he came back earlier this year, he wasn't like a spring training opening day guy because he was hurt. So when he came back, or he got called up, I can't remember. Maybe he got called up. He didn't start the season with Seattle, but when he got called up, he got rocked in his first start and only threw 47 pitches and threw 81. So I think like a 15 to 20 pitch increase here is super doable for Wu. I wouldn't be shocked, though. This is why I kind of want some news, but I wouldn't be shocked if they do innings again instead of pitch count. Like, hey, you're going to be capped at 5 innings today. I mean, it could be great if he's throwing really, really efficient, but I mean, the price tag is fantastic. So hopefully we get some news on him. Oakland's a team that I've been playing a lot. It feels dirty even saying that, but like everybody just instantly stacks against Oakland, and I get it, but I don't think I'm playing Oakland in this spot. There's been plenty of times I think you could play Oakland. I don't think this is one of them.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just have too much respect for the talent of Wu. The prices are coming up a little bit. Like Geloff has been smashing. He's over 5K. Like there are plenty of cheap value pieces, and I think that's the only place I would even be looking if I like Noda at 3,200. Yeah, I mean it's Butler at 2,100. Like probably those 2 guys I'd be looking for a home run there, but not much outside of that.
All I'm gonna say is, you're a '90s kid when you're like, anytime Brian Wu's pitching, all you can think about is woo 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 Kenny Wu. Cincinnati at San Francisco. If you didn't get that, you're not a '90s kid, or '80s kid. Man, maybe I'm an '80s kid. Cincinnati at San Francisco. I'm getting old. 8.5 total in this game. Pick'em game. Slight favorite to the Giants at -115. Abbott and Harrison facing off against each other. My favorite pitcher on the slate today is Andrew Abbott. And I was curious to see your thoughts before I give my thoughts. I've already just kind of laid out how much I like him. What are your thoughts on Abbott?
I mean, he's been phenomenal this season, and he gets a matchup against San Francisco, who strikes out a ton against left-handed pitchers. They strike out a ton in general, but even more against lefties. It's their fourth highest in strikeout rate against lefties, 25.5%. like, as if I'm spending up, he's my favorite pitcher to spend up for. Like over Gausman, over Snell. I would rather have Andrew Abbott than go up to those guys. Gallen gets the Dodgers, so no chance I'm doing that. I think if I'm spending up, Andrew Abbott's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel, right? Like if we talked about these 10K guys, and I mean, you can make an argument for any of them, right? Gausman, I just don't see a huge gap in like ceiling from Gausman to Abbott. Floor, yes, I get it. I'm a tournament player. I don't play cash games. I like the ceiling for Abbott more than I like the floor for Gausman, if that makes sense. So, I mean, huge strikeout guy against a huge strikeout offense. I just absolutely love this spot. This team has been one of the worst teams in baseball against left-handed pitching all season. And you don't get many ballpark upgrades like this from Cincinnati to San Francisco. I mean, let's be honest. So, and I think Kyle Harrison's going to be the chalky pitcher on the other side of this game. You know, you kind of already alluded to it as well. We both kind of feel like Kyle Harrison's going to get some ownership today. Let's talk about it. I mean, this is a much better team against right-handed pitching. So the lefty here. What are your thoughts on Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, without considering ownership, he's clearly my favorite pitcher on the entire slate. This is one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. The Reds have been trending in the wrong direction. They've been striking out a ton recently. Over the last 30 days, they have the third highest strikeout rate in baseball, 27.5%. Kyle Harrison's an elite pitcher. The only concern here is the pitch count. He threw 65 pitches in his major league debut. He's fully stretched out. I expect that number to climb a little bit. So 75 to 80 pitches against this Cincinnati team that strikes out a ton is worse against lefties. He's $6,500. He has a 30% strikeout rate in the minors. He struck out 5 and 3 1/3 innings in his debut against Philly. So this is an elite pitcher. He's way too cheap. This is a fantastic matchup as well. I see a ton of upside here, even if the pitch count's limited.
Yeah, this is a guy that was top 5 AAA prospects coming into the season. Like top 20 overall, top 5 just in AAA. Top Giants prospect in the organization. This kid, like big fastball, throws 2 pitches. He needs to develop a third pitch to be like elite. But I mean, this dude, big heat, big fastball, big slider. And he is capable of having big games. So, yeah, a lot of interest in Harrison, and I'm glad to see him finally called up. Let's be honest. So, but any lefty that can throw like 95 plus is typically going to succeed in the MLB. So, just needs that third pitch. And all these people that compare him to Randy Johnson, y'all are crazy. Let's be honest. Come on, man. Randy Johnson was a generational talent.
Yeah.
Cincinnati bats, man. I don't like the pricing, right? I like McLean. I like Steer. I like these guys against lefty. I just hate the pricing. I'm not playing these guys today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be heavily invested in Harrison. No interest in the Cincinnati bats. Massive ballpark downgrade, like you said.
I know we don't like talk betting all the time. It's also what you and I both do for scores and odds. Kind of like the under on this game, man. Like 8.5. I think that we see a pretty low scoring game here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Oh, Giants bats before we move on. Any interest?
No, I mean, it's like just the ballpark. Abbott's been awesome this year. Like Abbott's been a little bit lucky if you look at the underlying stuff, but he's like, this is a great spot for him. I'm not playing San Francisco here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that somewhat would pique my interest, Bailey at 3,400, JD Davis at 3,500. But yeah, I'm Abbott's my favorite pitcher today. So we finish out in LA with Arizona in LA. 8.5 total. Diamondbacks and Dodgers here. Dodgers a slight 135 favorite. Miller and Gallen, 2 phenomenal pitchers. I mean, Miller's a talented young pitcher, and Gallen's found his stride this season. I think he has like 14 or 15 wins. He's been great. I mean, one of the leading candidates here for the Cy Young. So it's just he gets a matchup against the Dodgers. Like this is the type of matchup that, like, if you want to boost where you're at in the Cy Young, you go out and dominate this game. But I don't think I can trust it for DFS.
Yeah, I mean, I feel similarly, but this guy, like, he's had a gauntlet. He's went through San Diego twice and Texas his last 3, and he's been good in all 3 of them. Strikeouts were way down the second time against San Diego, but we see that a lot when guys face the same team in back-to-back starts. He put up 30 DK points against Texas and 30 the first time against San Diego. So it's not out of the question that he could dominate this Dodgers offense. I don't think it's the most likely outcome. I don't think anybody's playing Gallen either is the other thing. We're getting a slight discount here. He probably should be 11K. He'd be 11K if the matchup was a little bit better. So I think you can take some shots, but it's large field tournament and it's an ownership play at best. The Dodgers are obviously elite.
One of those things, like paying up to be contrarian makes sense. Like if you want to pay up at pitcher instead of, play expensive bats and just take, if the Braves don't crush, like they have to crush. They have to crush. The Braves hit like 3 home runs today. Unless it's from one guy, they're not going to be optimal at these prices. So,
no.
Or the cheap guy hits the 3 home runs. Or yeah. So, but yeah, paying up to be contrarian, tough matchup. It's just a tough matchup. Like if you overlook the matchup, maybe Zach Gallen's in play. Bobby Miller has a tough matchup too. Arizona Diamondbacks, one of, if not the hottest team in baseball right now. They have been playing phenomenal. Them and the Mariners. The Mariners have been playing really good recently. But yeah, Arizona's been playing really solid here. But yeah, two of the best teams in the NL. Any interest here in Miller?
I played quite a bit of him against Cleveland, just kind of discounting that like Cleveland doesn't strike out a ton. This is the extremely similar matchup to Cleveland. He went 6 1/3. He gave up 4 runs, which I feel like he could do a little better than that from a run prevention standpoint. Only 5 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings, though. So that's kind of what, like, you need some length to get any sort of upside here. He's 8,800. If he was still like 7,500, I would have slight interest. But the Diamondbacks just don't strike out enough. He's fully priced, so I'm probably off Miller.
Oh yeah, I don't like bats in this game either. I think this is just one of those games where I hope it just kind of stays low scoring.
Yeah, I don't like either side for the bats. Two really good pitchers. No thanks.
Well, let's play the morning grind game and get out of here. We ran long today. We're sorry for a long podcast, but that's what they get for giving us a 12-game slate on Monday when I'm not even awake yet from NASCAR. Under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who do you got?
Kyle Harrison's the guy today. Elite fastball, elite slider, like you mentioned, 30% plus strikeout rate in AAA this year. Looked really good in his major league debut. Harrison.
Well, thank you for giving me the layup. I'll take Grayson Rodriguez against the awful White Sox. Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
Christian Javier. Boston just doesn't strike out. Javier doesn't strike out lefties, and Boston's going to throw a bunch of lefties at him. So I am completely out on Javier.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. I don't know. I don't want to say Elder because I feel like that's cheating. I guess I'm going to go like way off the board today and say Blake Snell. Or he's going to score 40. So I'm either going to be like really smart, like genius for fading Blake Snell, or just like an absolute absolutely wrong. But anyway, over 4K to hit home run, not in cores. Gosh, got to throw that out there really strong today. Not in cores.
For sure. Give me Julio Rodriguez. He's just been the hottest man on the planet here recently. Gets a matchup against Kyle Muller and a terrible Oakland bullpen. Love Julio today.
I already said the Padres are my favorite pivot off the Braves. This team has been struggling. What a spot to get back on schedule here against Adam Wainwright. Give me Fernando Tatis Jr. to hit more home runs than Ronald Acuna today. Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's your cheap bet that you like today?
Give me. I think there's several options. We talked about a lot of cheap mini stacks. I like some Baltimore against Kopech, and I like lefties. Adam Frazier is 3,400 against Michael Kopech, who struggles with lefties. So give me Frazier.
I like that one. I'm gonna go Willer Abreu. I already talked about him.
Love that call.
Top 20 prospect in Boston's organization. Has some power, has some speed. So yeah, I like Willer Abreu today at 2,900, assuming he starts. I assume he starts today. Stack to score 6 or more runs.
Give me the Mariners. Muller has been better since coming back up, but I don't believe in him. He's a really low strikeout guy. Seattle's been red hot. And even if they can't get it done against Muller, they've got that terrible bullpen. So Seattle to score more than 6.
I like that for sure. I mean, I have a couple teams written down. I'm tired, man. Give me Boston to get the job done today. I already said I like San Diego a lot. I really like Boston today. You know, you don't love stacking against Houston. Their bullpen is not a joke. They're a top 10 bullpen, but yeah, I like this spot for Boston today. Keith, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Don't have anything else.
Oh, we'll see you back tomorrow. Thanks again for pinch hitting. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get out of here. Hope everyone has a fantastic Monday. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. We'll be back tomorrow talking more baseball. We'll see you then. Have a good night.